Crowds gathered at City Hall expecting nothing more than a routine speech. But when a police K-9 suddenly sat in front of a politician and refused to move, everything changed. What happened moments later stunned everyone watching and revealed a secret that could not stay hidden. Here is the full story. But before we roll it, drop your favorite dog's name in the comments and make sure you hit that subscribe button. The morning had begun like any other at City Hall. Reporters lined the steps with cameras raised, supporters held banners, and the crowd pressed closer as the politician prepared to enter the tall stone building for what was expected to be a routine speech. The bright flags waved above the columns, but beneath that surface of celebration lay something tense, something unspoken. In the midst of all the movement, a single moment of silence fell. A police K-9, trained and disciplined, stopped dead in its tracks. Instead of following its handler forward through the security perimeter, the dog sat down rigid, alert, and unblinking, its eyes locked not on the crowd, not on the gates, but directly at the politician who had just stepped onto the plaza. The handler gave subtle signals, expecting the dog to rise. It did not. The dog pressed itself firmly against the ground, chest tight, tail stiff, and ears pointed forward. In the noise of the cheering audience, only a few closest noticed, but then the dog gave a sharp, low sound, not the usual bark of aggression, not the playful sound of curiosity, but something sharper, a sound of warning. The sudden change was so unusual that nearby officers froze. Why would a trained K-9 halt so decisively? What had it seen or smelled or sensed that others had not? The politician paused for only a second, glancing nervously at the animal before continuing toward the marble steps. Yet the dog refused to let the movement pass unnoticed. It rose and blocked the path, body rigid, gaze unbroken. The handler pulled firmly, but the dog held ground as though glued to the stone beneath. The crowd murmured, confusion spreading. Cameras zoomed in, capturing the tense image of a politician confronted by a police dog on the steps of City Hall. Something about the air shifted. The celebration no longer felt safe. Questions swirled unspoken among the onlookers. Was the dog sensing danger? Was there something hidden the officers had overlooked? Could there be a threat none of them could yet see? The officers formed a wider perimeter, but even then the dog refused to move. Its nose tilted slightly, drawing in the air around the politician. Its chest heaved as if filtering invisible signals. Every detail of its stance carried weight, and those who watched closely could feel that weight pressing against their own nerves. Then came a strange moment. The politician clutched his briefcase tighter. Subtle, nearly invisible, but the eyes of the K-9 caught it instantly. The dog leaned forward, nose twitching with intensity, and then sat down again with deliberate force right in front of the man. That single motion cracked the calm. Spectators began whispering louder. Reporters raised their voices, and security grew visibly unsettled. A trained K-9 rarely made mistakes. If it refused to move, it was not without cause. But what was the cause? The scene dragged on, seconds feeling longer than minutes. The politician shifted uncomfortably, sweat glistening on his forehead, though the day was cool. The handler signaled backup, and plainclothes officers moved closer, scanning the crowd for signs of danger. Still, the dog never wavered. Its breathing deepened, body angled forward, as if every sense was sharpened to a single target. The air filled with unease. Some in the crowd believed the dog was reacting to nerves or perhaps a hidden scent carried on the wind. Others wondered if it was something far more serious. The memory of past tragedies echoed in the minds of many, where small signals ignored had led to disaster. The more the K-9 refused to yield, the heavier the silence became between bursts of crowd noise. Then came another unsettling moment. The politician adjusted his suit jacket, a sharp movement that caused the dog to lunge slightly, snapping its jaws in warning. Gasps echoed from the front row of the crowd. The handler restrained the animal just in time, but its teeth had clashed audibly in the tense space. That sound alone was enough to freeze every officer nearby. Why would the canine react so fiercely to the simple shift of a jacket? The questions grew deeper. What exactly had the dog detected? What was hidden behind the fabric or inside the case or in the air itself that human senses could not grasp? Officers exchanged uneasy looks, whispering quickly, and for the first time, the handler's eyes met the gaze of the politician with suspicion. The briefcase remained firmly clutched in his hand, closer now to his body as if protecting it from being noticed. But the canine had already noticed. The crowd waited, restless. Reporters scrambled to capture every angle, knowing something larger was unfolding before them. And yet no one could predict what the dog had uncovered. The handler issued a firm order. The canine, in response, shifted its position lower, pressing its chest tighter against the stone ground, staring upward with eyes locked as though announcing silently that the man before them could not move further. It was no longer resistance. It was absolute refusal. Moments like these are where instincts outweigh protocols. The other officers closed in, surrounding the politician under the guise of standard procedure, but in reality, shadows of doubt moved across their faces. What was so urgent that a highly trained animal would bring an entire event to a standstill? The politician finally turned slightly toward the officers, his face tense, lips pressed tightly. He lifted his briefcase a fraction higher, almost as if shielding it. The dog immediately growled, a low rumble that vibrated through the plaza. That sound, the kind of warning no handler trains for, made the air collapse into silence. The crowd stood frozen. Cameras stopped flashing. For the first time that morning, it was not the politician who commanded attention, not the banners or the steps of City Hall, but a single canine holding the moment hostage with nothing but instinct and refusal. And as the officers stepped closer, ready to act, one question gripped every mind in the plaza. What was inside that briefcase? The plaza was no longer filled with celebration. The atmosphere had hardened, drawn tight by the weight of unanswered questions. All eyes rested on the politician, the briefcase, and the dog that refused to yield. The handler gave another sharp command. Still, the canine did not budge. Its eyes remained fixed, unrelenting, the growl steady and low, a sound that reverberated deeper than the noise of the gathering crowd. Two security officers shifted forward cautiously, forming a tighter circle. The politician's smile faltered, his hands gripping the briefcase more firmly, as though aware that the dog had locked onto something no human eye had yet noticed. The more he tried to appear composed, the more his body betrayed him. A bead of sweat slid down his temple. His chest rose faster than before, and his grip on the handle tightened until his knuckles whitened. The canine's nostrils flared again. It leaned closer, straining against the handler's firm hold, its teeth flashing in a sudden snap that startled even seasoned officers. This was no false alarm. The dog had made its decision. The handler's radio buzzed, low and urgent. Backup was already on standby, and a decision had to be made. No officer wanted to cause panic among the hundreds gathered, but the dog's unshakable instinct left no space for hesitation. Whispers turned into speculation. Some thought the dog sensed explosives. Others believed it was reacting to a hidden weapon. But what struck many was the way the man refused to let go of the case, holding it as though his entire world rested inside. The officers exchanged brief, tense signals. One approached cautiously from the left, while another positioned behind. The handler braced, tightening the leash, waiting for the order that would determine the next move. And then it happened. The briefcase slipped slightly from the politician's grip as he shifted his stance. It was barely an inch, but enough for the metal latch to glint under the sun. That single detail made the canine erupt into frantic barking, teeth bared, muscles pulling forward with unstoppable force. The sound was raw, sharp, and filled with urgency, enough to send a shiver through the crowd. At last, the order was given. The politician was secured by officers from both sides. His briefcase was pried from his hands despite his desperate attempt to hold on. The dog lunged forward, nose pressing hard against the case, barking with such intensity that even those far at the back could feel the urgency in its voice. The plaza fell silent once again as bomb technicians rushed forward, their heavy protective gear clashing with the celebratory banners that still fluttered above. The briefcase was placed carefully on the ground, a wide circle of space opening around it. Every heartbeat seemed longer than the last. The K9 sat back, eyes locked, as though waiting for confirmation of what it already knew. The technicians worked swiftly, examining the seams of the case. Seconds ticked by like hours. The crowd held its breath, torn between fear and disbelief. And then came the signal. Inside, hidden beneath stacks of ordinary papers, was a carefully concealed device, rigged and timed, designed to go unnoticed until too late. Shock tore through the plaza. The cheers that had greeted the politician only minutes earlier dissolved into horrified silence. Reporters stumbled backward, cameras shaking as they tried to capture every second. Parents pulled their children closer. The officer's instincts were confirmed. The K9 had saved them all. It became clear. The politician had planned more than just a speech. His briefcase carried destruction intended to shatter the very crowd gathered to cheer him. The irony cut deep. The one who stood before them promising leadership had carried the threat of devastation in his own hands. The pieces connected in an instant. The dog had noticed what no human could: the faint chemical trace clinging to the air, the subtle nervous tremor in the man's grip, the hidden weight within the case. Its refusal to move had not been defiance. It had been protection. The device was secured and disarmed before it could cause harm. The crowd, though shaken, erupted in relief, realizing how close tragedy had come. And at the center of it all stood the K9, steady and unshaken, as though it had always known this was its duty. Officers quickly led the politician away, his attempt exposed not by human investigation, not by hours of planning, but by the instincts of a single dog that refused to ignore what it sensed. The truth unfolded in plain sight, leaving no doubt as to who had been moments away from betraying the very people he sought to lead. The aftermath carried a strange quiet. The banners still swayed, but now they hung over a scene that had nearly turned into disaster. Families clutched one another. Reporters spoke in hurried tones. Officers exhaled the relief of having averted what could have been irreversible. And at the steps of City Hall, the K9 sat once more, calm now, silent yet still alert, its body a shield between danger and the people it was sworn to protect. That image became the lasting memory of the day. Not the politician's speech, not the promises written on the banners, but a single dog who chose to sit, to hold its ground, and in doing so, saved hundreds from harm. The mystery had been solved. The strange refusal, the growls, the lunges, it had all been leading to this. What once seemed like confusion now connected perfectly, each action a warning pointing to the truth. The City Hall steps, once a stage for speeches, became a reminder of vigilance. The crowd carried that lesson home, their voices spreading the story across the nation. And at the heart of it stood a single K9, silent, loyal, and heroic. The reason hundreds of lives were spared. Imagine if you had missed this story. You would never know how one dog changed everything in front of City Hall. Do not let the next one slip by. Hit like, subscribe, and stay close, because the next story will leave you questioning what you think you know.